Hey YouTube, it's Steve again with Rescape 2.0, making another video. Today I'm going to be talking about this continuation of, it's not in the Matrix, it is using the present moment as a weapon. And in that I mentioned briefly about how when a lion roars, it's the fact that the lion, like when it makes its face, it makes you afraid, like it's designed to do that. When it roars, it's meant to break you out of the present moment. And how if you're out of the present moment, you tense and it can move in and gets the first hit. But if you stay in the but then that implies if you stay in the present moment, you stand a chance. And if you're in the point close enough to the line where it can hit you, and it's in the present moment, and you're in the present moment, even if you're in the present moment, how are you supposed to survive a lion attacking you? And the reason you can't do that is because, again, we're in the Matrix, and so we think about things. You assume that the way we are now, at least physically and anatomically, they had 2 legs and 2 feet and eyeballs and all that. So certainly, a lot of other things would be the same that aren't the same. Because when I said in Outside the Matrix video about how they live a completely different life, and there's all these things that can blow your mind, well, today is going to be specifically on the human body and how the human body was back then and how it had to be to survive and how it's completely different, and you can't even consider it unless someone tells you about it because of the way that we're brought up in today. And also, like in my video about authentic energy work, I talked about, like, if you have a bunch of birds and want to clip their wings in one blow, and like the best thing to take away in Qigong to make sure no one ever really gets anywhere with Qigong is mirror washing, and that's why no one really knows mirror washing, because I purposely kept that a secret for that point. Well, the way that the human beings are clipped physically, and you see this everywhere, and the fact it's everywhere, you wouldn't even know, except now I'm going to tell you. You might have figured it out on, or some of you might have, but the way you know that the human body has been clipped by the Matrix is that between the upper torso and the legs, like between basically the lower back, your middle back to your butt, and the lower back, there's a curve. It's a curve inwards. So, and even when you see the anatomy of like a skeleton, it'll show this. It'll show the spine, like it waves, which it does wave a little bit, but at the base of the spine, it curves out. So everyone's got this arch in their lower back. It's completely not supposed to be there, but because of things like the skeleton anatomy, and then like you'll see the thing over and over, they basically gets shoved into our head over and over again about how you have the caveman, you have like the monkey, then a little bit more of a human, and then basically a caveman, and then you have the human who's standing up straight, which is completely wrong. The monkey before the human, basically the one that's human but it's a caveman, is kind of slouched over and it's kind of like walking like a, kind of like what a monkey walks like. The real human anatomy, the way we were built, the hips are tucked, so the pelvis, and you can even see that if you look at the skeleton. You can even tell if someone's just looking at, like an alien's looking at the skeleton, what they would ask is like, why is the pelvis, oblong out at an angle towards the floor, when it seems like it'd be much more efficient if it was, if the pelvis, instead of being like that with the spine like that, what if it was like that and the spine would come up underneath, and then you have the legs, and in order for the come up underneath, the legs would have to go like, they'd have to bend, and so you'd be slouching around, which is exactly what you see toddlers do when they learn how to walk. We basically have to teach them to stand up straight, and then they get that thing in the back. And the problem with the thing in the back, you think it wouldn't do a lot, but once you have that thing in your back, the first thing that happens, if you think about the nature of yin and yang, like yang is straight and yin is curved, so the upper body would be straight and the lower body would be curved. So the legs are supposed to be curved, and for lots of different reasons. So first of all, if you're going to jump, you know how we have to squat down to jump, because normally our legs are straight. Again, if you get surprise attacked by a lion, you don't have time to squat down to jump. So you're always squat down, and that's how you walk. And if you do energy work, anything about energy work, if your upper and lower bodies aren't connected, you can't build energy. I told you that the lower abdomen is not the storage place for the chi, but it's definitely the place that chi goes to when you're about to use it. And if you're disconnected in the lower back, it severely hampers that. And if you want to connect to heaven and earth energy, like heaven connects to the top of your head and you absorb energy through your feet, the only way they can meet efficiently is if your lower abdomen is actually, open. And in order to do that, you have to tuck your hips and do everything I was telling you about. So for Qigong, and the best way to circulate energy and to build energy that way is actually to walk the way that the guy, in the caveman, like monkey, like modern man, the one before the modern man, the way they're slouching, like that's the way you're supposed to walk. Like if you walk that way, you may have, Qigong connections, which they automatically did because they never lost them. They'll just build energy by walking. And guess what they did? They didn't have bicycles or cars. They had to walk everywhere. So, and then you get that healthiness, which is, you think we're healthier today when we're really not healthy at all. Because the other thing too, when you connect the upper and lower bodies, the way you move changes, because at this point, like the way we're taught to move is like lifting weights. You have like dumbbells, but what that does, it segments, like you're working your bicep, and so your bicep is, building that by itself, which is completely incorrect. Real strength happens when the body moves as one piece, and you can only do that when you tuck your hips well. And then so what happens, let's say you want to use your bicep. Under no circumstances 50,000 years ago would someone just use their bicep. Like we think of things like when you're eating, use a spoon or fork, but look what a spoon or fork does. It immediately breaks the present moment, because your fork's in one place and it's another, and then it's little tiny things, so you're not even aware of the rest of your body. One of the biggest, criminals, or one of the biggest causes of the lower back arch, besides the fact we teach our kids like that because everybody does it, so of course it's the right thing, is sitting in chairs. Sitting in a chair is a completely unnatural position. If you want to know how to sit down for real, you have to squat, and guess what? Nobody can squat. By the time you're a teenager, you can't keep your feet flat on the ground while having your butt touching your ankles. Like, nobody can do it. Well, actually, Asian people can do it. For some reason, Asian people have better anatomy that way. Anyway, so, and you can't do that. And that's another way. Like, the other way most people keep the, back 50,000 years ago, how they kept the lower arch out of their back, just permanently being there. I mean, you need to, arch your back for certain things, and you stand up straight for certain things, but you don't stay there the whole time. And the way they evened it out is when you squat, you have to squat, women several times a day, but even men, if you poop once or twice a day, you're going to spend time squatting. And then when you empty your bowels, that releases where the lower dantian is, so the chi can flow there, and it's just a natural thing, and it's built to be that way. And so squatting is very natural, but guess how we use the bathroom now? They made a toilet seat, so you're sitting, again, the completely unnatural thing that puts the arch in your back. And even people that know about, bowel movements, things like that, will tell you the toilet's not good for your bowel movements. So, so some of these things even modern science knows. The ones that modern science people don't know about is just because everybody does it, so you're not open to the possibility of something else. And even as I'm telling you this, it's more efficient. You can think about it. Like, say, if your knees are always bent, and then you say, well, once your legs get tired eventually. But the thing is, in the lower back, there's like this fascia or something that when you have your hips tucked all the time and you don't get to that point, whatever that stuff in the lower back is, it sinks down the back of your thighs and the back of your calves, so you can actually sit in a very real way. Your legs, you can be squatted close to the ground. Let's say you stand up straight, so now you're like that, like hold the bowl kind of thing, and your leg will support the shape without you actually having to use your muscle. And that goes into a whole nother thing with fascia tissue, which science knows, is starting to learn, but knows very little about. One of the things with fascia tissue, if you affect one point of the fascia tissue, it affects the whole body. The fascia tissue can hold quality based off mind intent, like chi does, and largely because when you do energy transfer through your body, if like energy like flows up your arm, like out your hand or whatever, it travels through the fascia tissue. Now, I don't know why that is. The fascia tissue has a lot of quality similar to spirit. Like if you poke the spirit somewhere, you're poking the whole spirit because it's individual. Same thing with the fascia tissue. Fascia tissue holds things together and protects things, like the spirit, holds us, together and protects us. So like I said with bone marrow and how that's, how life is created, the blood and the newness or whatever kind of has a thing. You'll see parallels between spiritual things and physical things. So the fascia tissue, one of the things besides traveling energy and being able to maintain qualities, one of the qualities, if you train it, and this happens automatically for people that, again, don't have the lower back arch, is that when you get the adrenaline rush, the fascia tissue tightens, and it doesn't harden, but it kind of hardens. But when you say hard, you think of like harden like a rock, which isn't, it still flexes a little bit. But basically what happens, because back to the lion thing, if a lion hits you, assuming, maybe the claws aren't there, maybe it backhands you or whatever. Because again, I'll go into that second. So let's say the lion hits you. Let's say it hits the shoulder. Anybody knows if a grizzly bear or lion even hardly touches you somewhere, it immediately breaks. Like it'll like brush your shoulder and your shoulder will crumble. Well, one of the ways that didn't happen doesn't mean it wouldn't get injured. Well, one of the ways it's not a fight ender is because if the fascia tissue is protecting the shoulder and the fascia, you hit one part of the fascia tissue, you hit all of it. One of the big things of natural iron body training that people had naturally back then, let's say the shoulder's like 1/30th of the whole body. So if you hit the shoulder and it's connected to fascia tissue, now the shoulder's 30 times as strong. It takes 30 times the amount of hit that a normal shoulder, like, our shoulder, because we lift weights, like we go like this and like, oh yeah, my shoulder's getting strong. It's completely getting weaker because you don't use muscle. You can't use muscle to survive back then because muscle's slow. It's out of the present moment. And by itself, no part of the human body is strong by itself, at least not when you're fighting, real things, an animal. If you need to climb, which by the way, if anyone's had kids, you'll know that little children try to start climbing things and we told them not to. But if we didn't do that and actually let them climb, it'd be another way to keep the body as one piece, and then you wouldn't have the lower back arch as much. So of course we have to get rid of that. So no climbing. But back then they had to climb because, like you say, your legs are bent, and so you got that split second, that first move, because you're in the present moment when they sneak attack you or whatever. A lot of times that first moment is you're jumping, which they can jump extraordinarily high, and then grabbing a tree, and then you pull yourself up like you do a pull up. But since you're pulling with your whole body and crunching your stomach and your legs come up, your feet go down, and it's the whole thing, you can actually jump with your hands. It's like Tarzan almost, even though they're not showing Tarzan doing it the right way. So you jump, grab the limb, jump again. So basically they looked like real monkeys, and they had to do that because if they didn't do it immediately, well, here comes the tiger claw. Thank God you can take 30 times a hit, so it doesn't crush your shoulder beyond recognition. But I guarantee you it'll take you out of the present moment with that level of pain and whatever. And then what's coming next? You better have a buddy, which is why they hunt in groups or whatever. And there's another thing, I didn't mention this, but one great way to come out of the present moment is sharp pain. So you have a knife. Like if you get hit with a blunt weapon, it's easier to stay in it than you get hit with a sharp weapon, because the change from being normal to being sharp pain is a lot quicker. And the other thing, there's a springy quality with fascia tissue. Like fascia tissue can take different qualities, and this is more of the tendons part. So when your legs are always bent, and you can keep them bent, and you can sit on them without actually using muscle, and the fascia tissue, when your body's completely relaxed, which can only take place in the present moment, and you don't use your muscles anymore, and you move just with your fascia tissue, and that sounds crazy, but that's how Tai Chi works. So you can just meet people who do Tai Chi, and if they're intermediate Tai Chi, they'll show you how to do it. And one of the qualities is spring quality. Like I said, there's 36 genes, primary genes, 36 qualities you can take. That's like one of the gene expression is a spring, like you press the spring and it pops back out. And so when the fascia tissue takes that, and actually this one's more of the tendon system, it gets really complicated, but when your tendons are springy, let's say, how do you outrun a lion? Well, one of the things is when you have that bent leg, flat lower back, full body, whatever, fascia tissue, and then your tendons are springing, when you run or jump, let's say you run, you leap, and running is like, you run and you jump, and then one foot pushes and the next foot pushes, and you're sprinting, you're going really fast. But if you have the springing thing, imagine you have a pogo stick on each leg, and so now when you jump off the pogo stick, you're not going a foot or two or a couple feet to the next foot. You're going 5, 10, 15 feet forward. And so when you sprint, the fastest sprinters in the Olympics right now or whatever, they sprint really fast. Their legs, so the person 50,000 years ago, their legs didn't move necessarily faster, but each stride of their legs went several times further than ours do now. And so like a grizzly bear can go 30 miles an hour, and us, at our best, probably like 12 miles an hour. But if you can spring even twice as far as we do, now you're at 24 miles an hour and you're getting closer. You may not be able to outrun them, but you can definitely, if they're far away, you can keep a distance a lot longer period of time, maybe get to a tree, that kind of thing. So when I say 50,000 years ago is completely different, it's not just the psychic abilities, it's not just the community and like customs and striving and all that stuff, but human beings, besides naturally having psychic ability, we are naturally, why are animals so much stronger and faster than us? It's like we're strong and fast too. It's just whatever, is trying, break the present moment and limit our psychic abilities or whatever. And think about it, who doesn't have a lower arch in their back? Like even in third world countries, they do. You can't go anywhere. Sports athletes do. You can't go anywhere and not see this. So how would you know? There's no way you can know unless somebody basically showed you or it was brought to your attention as a possibility. But then when you do know, like all these things I'm telling you, assuming that you do believe in chi energy, and then how does chi travel? Because it can't travel through the muscles, because muscles tense and tension blocks energy flow. So it has basically the bones, tendons, or fascia tissue. And the bones from my previous video store energy, and then the tendons can take on qualities too. But it's the nature of the fascia tissue being uniform and everywhere. If you're going to, use your chi energy, it's going to be uniform throughout your body, hopefully. And because the auric field's uniform around your body. So fascia tissue is perfect, and it can be soft or hard or both at the same time. And you have to have the yin and yang principle together, to transfer energy effectively. So the fascia tissue can be super soft and super hard at the same time. It's that squishy hard thing I was telling you about. And again, all these qualities too, if you check a Tai Chi master, they can show you these things too. And it's not just fascia tissue. You can do skin and tendons and bone. You basically transfer these qualities to anything if your mind's strong enough. Anyway, but fascia tissue does it naturally. If you get surprise attack and the adrenaline hits, your fascia tissue will do it naturally. If you punch someone with their fascia tissue fully on, full body, with that quality, it could break your hand. At very least, wherever you punch them is going to hurt you. Not only would it not hurt them, it would feel painful. It'd feel like you got stung, basically. And I only know this because I've seen people who train this up, and so I know the qualities of how this happens. And it's like, venom. You got the black venom ink around you, and then it can basically, what happens, it can kind of do its own thing on its own. Different parts of your body has intelligent consciousness on its own. The reason you don't know is because they only have to do very limited roles. The only like complex roles. One of the reasons the mind's complex is because their decisions we have to make can be complex. But the skin doesn't have, the fascia tissue doesn't necessarily have complex decisions, but it can decide on its own. Oh, here comes the lion's claw. So let's say your deciding your brain tensed up, it's not in the present moment anymore because it like roared at you, but your skin can, your fascia tissue can still be in the present moment. So it forms up at the split second, and the lion, knocks you 20 yards away, and you can't use your shoulder now, but you'll be able to use your shoulder later. And like I said about a long time ago, outside the Matrix, like if you break your leg, you're dead. I don't know if you die instantly. If you can survive with a broken shoulder, that might be easier. But it's important not to have things break. So if the bone's going to break, that's a bad situation. And having the fascia tissue like that definitely prevents it. All these things I'm telling you about it's not that they're superhuman. It's that it's necessary. All the people that didn't have this died. They had to have this. They're like, it's not even natural selection either, because that's based off genetics. This is just based off how a human was. Like, all the humans have this. If there's something wrong with them, or if they had it and then it didn't apply properly, well, you don't get second chances back then. So anyway, I hope all this stuff blows your mind, because it freaking blows my mind. And if you believe me, don't take my word for it. Go out and do your own research. To start with Tai Chi people. If you find real, like, not most Tai Chi people, but if you find real Tai Chi people that can manipulate their chi, like, you'll see things like this happening. They're rediscovering. Basically, Tai Chi never lost what they had back then, and so Tai Chi seems like it's mystical, but really they're just doing what we always do and forgot. So you've got to change it. The rescaping reality at this point isn't that they're better. It's that we've been fucked over, basically. And so now This is Steve, Rescape. I don't know what else to call it. Rescape 2.0. Have a good day.